Hey guys, it's your girl Pixie and I'm back with another video. Today's video is about Scarface. But before we get into the video, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and please be sure to follow me on all my other social media platforms. Also, my channel doesn't get paid yet, so any contributions are greatly appreciated. My Cash App is $Pixie0O, a 0 and then the letter O. It will be linked in the description. Now let's get into it. Okay guys, today's video is about Scarface and how greed, arrogance, control, and lack of self-control can destroy not only you, but those around you. Scarface isn't exactly a black film, but with common themes of black demographics as well as problems we face in the black community. Scarface will always be included when mentioning hood classics. Scarface is a cult classic and a favorite among the world when it comes to hood/gangsta movies. When we first meet Tony, he's a refugee who is trying to escape poverty, which he does, and becomes a wealthy man living his own American dream as a rich kingpin. Tony Montana is a charismatic, tenacious, ambitious, and ferocious man, which leads to his success, but also his demise. People who don't have ambition and goals often villainize people who do and make them seem like they're crazy and wrong for having mountainous ambitions and wanting more than just the norm. But as the saying goes, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's okay to make something from nothing. I mean, aren't we all trying to make $1 out of 15 cents? Still, Tony's trade comes with more than just money. It comes with brutality, death, despair, and a lot more. Most of the people he is involved with are playing the same game, but it doesn't make what comes with it any more pleasant. Others still get affected, sometimes punishing and adding consequences to the innocent. Some of his characteristics are admirable, but the actions aren't. Tony Montana is a cultural icon and one of the most memorable characters in cinematic history. We don't know a lot about his past, but what they do highlight gives us enough insight to see how he comes to be his character. Tony was born in Cuba, assuming a few years before the Castro regime took over the country in 1959. Tony grew up in poverty, repression, and control. This may have shaped him into a defiant, fearless person we see in the film. Whatever he was exposed to by his fathers, it glorified America and I'm assuming the American dream, as well as the criminals and the underworld. Tony was raised around crime and served time in Cuba. He became intertwined with gangs and that lifestyle. While his dad may have led him into wanting to be a gangster and live in America, his mother was the opposite. She was a traditional woman who wanted her son out of trouble and to go a different route. She despised the gangster lifestyle and wanted him to live humble. If you notice, Tony Montana is smaller than most of the men that he is around, which leads him to be assuming a confrontational, having a Napoleon complex, overly macho, fiery, and fearless. Also, the fact that he comes from poverty plays a role in how he acts, as they don't highlight other lives and the backgrounds, which leads us to assume that they probably weren't living or started out as low as Tony. This leads Tony into having an aggressive personality used to compensate for his adversities. He came from an overbearing, obedient, and repression from the government as well as his traditional mother. The films that his father shows him highlights life better than the one he was living. He became a rebel, dreaming of better and better, resulting in him taking to the streets, which led him to making friends and enemies along the way. He went to jail, but in a way, jail was the gateway to lead him into the life that he wanted for himself. This is where we find Tony at the beginning of the film, a man shipped off to the land of opportunity. He was an undesirable man along with his best friend Manny. Tony shows us early on that he doesn't play. He's not scared and he doesn't back down from anybody no matter what, even if the odds are against him. He has the confidence as most people with his background lack. Most people just lack the confidence in general. His boldness is admirable as well as respectable. Tony believes that he's the best, but he lacks humility, which causes him to be a narcissistic and believes that he is invincible. He doesn't break his balls or his word for anybody, as he mentions that many times in the film. Tony is loyal, but he's ruthless. It's crazy how he can be such a ruthless person, but still have boundaries and principles, as he doesn't go out of his way to harm the innocent. Most people in his film lack this moral integrity. His ambitions are huge, sometimes overstepping. For example, when he made a deal that his boss Frank didn't approve of. Even still, Tony had Frank in mind, and it wasn't his goal to snub or snake Frank. He just wanted both of them to elevate. His intentions were good, but as I mentioned, he doesn't have the humility to think about certain stuff and lets his ambitions get in the way. I'm not saying that he's right. I'm not saying that he's wrong. But some choices that he made wasn't his call to make. Tony's ambitions weren't bad, but how he goes about them are misguided, along with his narcissism and his exuded detrimental mindset. It was a recipe for disaster, which led him to self-destruction. His overprotectiveness of his sister Gina comes from a good place, but its extremeness led to her destruction that she did not deserve. He didn't want her included with criminals, and he wanted a better life for her, but his over-avertness caused her to have a worse life because she was still tied to him, which contradicts what he didn't want for her future. As far as the mom, she noticed early on the harm that Tony brings to those around him and those who are involved with him. She tries to keep it from affecting Gina. Tony doesn't want other men involved in his family life, as he feels as though he can provide. It's his way of protecting his family. At the same time, Tony knows his status and knows that he can't just have everybody coming around his family because he is a target. Tony is vicious, but comes off relatable, as he has admirable traits and values that soften him. Things like wanting marriage, love, kids, family, and protection. Most of the people that Tony caused harm to had it coming. He wasn't just reaching. He didn't have malice towards those who were undeserving. For example, his first drug deal and killing Frank wasn't unwarranted. They sent for him, and he was practicing self-defense. It's killed or be killed out here in the world, especially in this line of business. Some of Tony's murders can be seen as noble, as he killed Alberto, who refused to call off a hit of a journalist who had his wife and kids with him. Even still, this drama caused unwanted results to the innocent who are connected to the people involved with this line of business. Tony's planned assassination by Frank wasn't warranted, but it's the life you choose to live when being associated to this kind of business. He could have came to America to make an honest living. Even though the odds were against him as an immigrant, there are plenty of immigrants who come with nothing and make something. Actually, they become more successful than most Americans. A lot of adversity actually makes you stronger, as you've been through a lot to get where you are, making you equipped and stronger to deal with certain circumstances. With all of Tony's strong characteristics, such as values, confidence, smarts, he would have been just fine. Period. Let's talk about Manny. Manny was in the drug field as well, but Manny was definitely way more level-headed, humble, and laid back than Tony. He was Tony's right-hand man, and he did what he was told. He was very grateful to have escaped Cuba and was grateful for the opportunity that he had in front of him. Many of Tony's actions were warranted, but not what he did to Manny. Him killing Manny sealed his fate. Manny was his best friend and brother. We see the factors that play a part to Tony's reaction to this event, but those factors play into his slow, definite downfall. Tony is settled into his life as a rich man, but is uncomfortable. He got the money, the power, and the woman, but now he has paranoia, a drug addiction, and an unhappy, childless marriage. The drug usage right there to me was the biggest indicator early on that would definitely lead to his demise. As the notorious B.I.G. says, never get high on your own supply. Obviously, Biggie wasn't the originator of the quote, but he definitely capitalized on it and made it clear. Even Elvira said it in the beginning of the movie, which Tony breaks one of the biggest rules in the drug game, which starts a revolving door of destruction in his life. You can't be a drug dealer and get high. Come on. This goes back to what I said about Tony lacking humility. How can you think you could do both, being a drug dealer and doing the drug? But moving on. Now Tony feels unsafe and has to deal with Elvira's attitude, which is his karma. Tony had his eyes on Elvira when she was Frank's girl. But as I said, being as though Tony does have ambition, but doesn't necessarily know how to use them in all the right places, he didn't use his skills to analyze everything that comes along with having her. He wanted another man's girl, and he got her, along with the problems that come along with having her. Tony gets set up due to Manny's lack of judgment and being a scapegoat into Sosa's dirty web in order to save himself from a prison sentence. As these events take place, he realizes he's unhappy at the top. He had excitement to look up to, but now he has a life of routine and emptiness. Same-ish, different day, with nothing to look forward to. This brings him to despair, and you can see that in the restaurant scene, where Elvira eventually leaves him. Then when he can't find Manny, his fears start to get the best of him and grows as his life becomes disorganized, and it's something that he can't afford right now at this point in his life. Now he's a target, which he's been paranoid to this whole time. Of course, he gets super high, trying to plan his next move. His mother then calls him saying that Gina is missing, causing more problems and more paranoia. Now he's a madman running around looking for his sister as he now fears for her life. Tony finds his sister half naked at Manny's house, and with all that's going on in a matter of days and Manny's absence, it has his mind and mental state wrangled. Tony is now mentally fragile, and of course he's high, which doesn't help his situation or his mind. Being as though Tony is also narcissistic, he now has made it about him and makes Manny a person of betrayal. He gets too much money and too much power, which results in overindulgence in all things, especially drugs, which, as I mentioned before, is a big red flag and an obvious indicator of destruction for him. Tony lacks humility, so he also lacks organization and cannot handle all the money, power, and control. Tony has now murdered Manny, which seals his fate, as Manny was his right-hand man and could have helped him against Sosa. He could have hid at Manny's until they came up with a plan. Being as though Manny was the more humble one of the pair, most likely wasn't a target. But Tony, being the arrogant person that he was, goes back to his house and takes his sister with him, knowing he's a target. Why he would do that is beyond me. And on top of that, he gets high some more. SMH. Now he's home and settled in, and what he did to Manny is hitting him, and probably even more aggressively since he's high. His sister is distraught and attempts to kill him. He loses Manny and his sister. He broke her mentally and emotionally. That sweet, innocent, life-giving energy is now all gone. As I said, crazy how he doesn't want another man leading her to her demise, but he's the very one who does. Tony is a fighter, but is already destroyed by everything he becomes long before he gets killed and meets his demise. In other words, if he didn't get killed, his drug use or something else would have gotten to him first. Tony is a man who comes from nothing. He stood on business and stood strong in his adversities. He came on his own and made a way for himself. He had it all, regardless of all the odds that were stacked against him, and made his dreams a reality. Unfortunately, his dreams were corrupted by the criminal lifestyle he chose. His narcissism and ego brought him far, but this inability to handle a rapidly expanding lifestyle, along with the enemies working against him, left him paranoid, insecure, and full of himself. His belief in himself to be where he wanted to be got him far, but it also became his undoing. A man who doesn't fear is blind to the cliff before him. Tony had admirable personality traits, including charisma, charm, and tenacity. He could have used his talents and then to become anybody he wanted to be, but the life he chose was one of brutality, destruction, heartbreak, and despair. His willingness to live and thrive in the world full of crime and violence led to his undoing, leading him to drown in his own evil. Clearly, Tony Montana did not read the laws of power, which speaks on humility, not trying to overpower the master, patience, and learning your opponent. He had great characteristics, but wisdom, knowledge, and knowing how to play his hand, he did not. His uncontrolled ambitions got him out of here. We all should have ambition, but knowing how to channel them is the name of the game. My final thoughts. People's background and how they grow up with turn them into a good or not so good person that they become. As I always mention in my videos, this is a self-growth channel, and if you don't get the help and get your emotions in check or figure out the root of the problems, not only do you drag yourself down, but the people around you. Your great attributes become dark when you don't get in control of them. Tony came from poverty. He was short, controlling, and fearless. And because he didn't get any of that stuff in control, the adversities he had against him, along with his ambitious personality, could have led him into greatness. But instead, it led him into greed, aggressiveness, and competition because he came from nothing. Comparison is the killer of dreams. This is a cautionary tale of the results that comes along with people involved in a highly violent, criminal-based business, resulting in death, jail, unwanted family involvement, destruction, and more. It comes with the territory. I hope you guys liked the video. You already know what I'm going to say next. Please pray to God. Please protect your peace, and I'll see y'all in the next one.